My name is Rowan Alaj, and the night my parents handed me a ceramic mug that said Best Assistant, I knew exactly what I had to do. We were standing on a rooftop in downtown Portland. String lights glittered above white-clothed tables. Champagne flutes caught the last rays of sunset. Everyone was celebrating the launch of Thread, the AI platform that had saved our family's dying marketing firm and turned it into a $150 million empire. My father raised his glass and announced my sister Celeste as Chief Innovation Officer. The architect of our future, he called her. The crowd erupted in applause. Celeste stepped forward in silver sequins, smiling like she'd earned every syllable of praise. I stood near the projection screen in a navy jumpsuit, watching Thread's dashboard cycle through real-time metrics. Every line of code, every algorithm, every predictive model. I had built it all, alone, in a guest bedroom turned lab through sleepless nights and aching wrists. Later, my parents found me at the bar. My father handed me a gift bag, grinning. A little something for the woman behind the curtain. Inside was the mug, Best Assistant. I wrapped my fingers around the handle and smiled. Thanks, I said. That night, I carried the mug back to my apartment, set it beside my monitor, and while the city slept off its champagne, I opened Nova Logic's admin dashboard and began to take back everything they thought they owned. Because I wasn't the assistant, I was the architect, and they were about to learn the difference. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when I believed being smart would be enough. That hard work would eventually be noticed. That family meant something more than function. I was wrong. While other kids in 5th grade drew flowers or built Lego castles, I was rewriting calculator code so it could predict test scores. My mother, Elaine, thought it was cute. My father, Grant, didn't look up from his phone. And my sister Celeste, 3 years younger but always louder, always camera ready, stood center stage at every birthday party, every recital, every family photo. I didn't mind then. Quiet suited me. So did code. It was clean, logical, honest. Not like people. When I was 9, I won a state robotics competition. I'd built a sorting arm that used color sensors to organize marbles faster than any human hand. The judges called it extraordinary. My father asked if I'd remembered to clean my room. That same week, Celeste made a glitter poster for a school fundraiser. My parents called every relative in Oregon to brag about her creativity. It was always like that. Celeste sparkled. She knew how to spin half-truths into charm and stumbles into style. I watched her fail upward more times than I could count, each time caught by the safety net of our parents' belief that she was meant for bigger things. When her social media startup flopped in Austin, they blamed the algorithm. When her PR internship ended, early, they blamed toxic company culture. But when I burned out in my second year at MIT, from taking on too many AI research projects, they said I lacked balance. I learned early that my value wasn't in being loved. It was in being useful. By the time I graduated MIT with a degree in computer science and artificial intelligence, Alage Strategies, my parents' boutique marketing firm in Portland, was circling the drain. The company had once been respected, a staple of the Pacific Northwest business community, but they'd clung to analog habits in a digital world. Campaigns fell flat, clients vanished, layoffs followed. I came back not because I missed them, but because I couldn't watch something die when I knew exactly how to save it. I didn't come home with dreams of praise. I came back with a timeline and a plan. Alage Strategies was bleeding, offices downsized, staff cut by half, clients dwindling month by month. The company my grandparents had built in the 1980s was suffocating under its own refusal to evolve. I offered to help, not because I wanted their gratitude, but because I saw a problem I could solve. I turned the guest bedroom into a lab. At night, while my parents hosted wine and cheese networking events downstairs, I coded until my wrists ached and my vision blurred. I didn't tell them everything, because even then, some part of me understood that trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. So, I did something quietly, legally, carefully. I registered my software, Thread, under a new entity, Nova Logic Systems, a limited liability company filed with the state of Oregon, owned entirely by me. The licensing agreement I drafted gave Alage Strategies full access to Thread's capabilities, but only as long as I remained Director of Technical Operations. That clause was buried deep in the legal packet, written in dense contractual language my father skimmed and signed without reading. Thread wasn't just software. It was a predictive analytics engine that could scan consumer behavior, anticipate market trends, and adapt marketing strategy in real time. It learned, it evolved, and it worked. Within 6 months, Thread had cut operational costs by 40%. Within a year, we'd landed 3 Fortune 500 contracts. By year 2, national retail chains were scheduling meetings. Starbucks signed a regional campaign, then REI, then a chain of boutique hotels from Northern California. The company that had been on life support was suddenly thriving. Headlines praised the turnaround. Trade publications called it a miracle resurrection. Celeste, who'd recently returned home from her failed startup in Austin, volunteered to handle client demos. "I can sell it better," she said with that confident smile. And she could. She was magnetic in meetings, photogenic for interviews, effortlessly charming in ways I would never be. I stayed behind the screen, tweaking Thread's algorithms, optimizing workflows, fixing bugs no one knew existed. I didn't mind. The work mattered more than the spotlight. Or so I told myself. Because when Elage Strategies hit $150 million in valuation and the press clippings read the Elage sisters visionary and voice, with Celeste smiling from the cover and my name nowhere to be found, something inside me began to crack. Thread didn't just work, it performed like nothing the industry had seen. Campaign success rates jumped by 35% within the first quarter. Thread mapped consumer sentiment with eerie accuracy, adjusting ad spend in real time, identifying untapped demographics, even recommending copy changes based on regional tone analysis. It was predictive, adaptive, intuitive. Clients who hadn't answered our calls in years were suddenly scheduling meetings. Our servers strained under demand. My inbox flooded with API access requests from agencies across the country. And Celeste stepped in to represent the brand. "You don't want to do interviews, right?" she asked one morning, standing in my doorway holding a fresh blazer. I didn't answer. She took it as permission. She had the voice for it, warm, enthusiastic, just vague enough to sound insightful without saying anything concrete. She practiced lines in front of the mirror. "Our predictive algorithms create intuitive consumer journeys. We've built something that thinks alongside you." Clients ate it up. At first, I didn't care. The work was what mattered. Watching Thread evolve in real time, seeing patterns emerge from chaos, that was reward enough. But slowly, something shifted. Investors stopped asking technical questions. New clients requested Celeste by name. Articles began appearing in Portland business journals, then regional tech magazines, then national publications. One feature in Portland Innovators Weekly ran with the headline, "The Woman Reviving Family Business with Her Signature AI." Celeste's face covered the entire top half of the page. The article praised her vision, her leadership, her ability to blend human intuition with machine learning. It quoted her extensively. It mentioned our parents' pride, the company's resurgence, the bright future ahead. I read it twice. My name wasn't mentioned once. At the next team meeting, Celeste handed out branded notebooks that read Vision, Voice, Victory. Alliteration was her thing. The staff clapped. Half of them didn't know the system architecture had been built in my bedroom. My father framed the article and hung it in the lobby, right beside the reception desk where every client would see it. I kept building. Thread was evolving, and I had plans for a major update, a reinforcement learning module that could autonomously reshape entire campaign strategies. But no one asked about that. They asked if Celeste was speaking at the next conference, if she'd share her creative process. It became clear I wasn't just behind the scenes anymore. I'd been erased from the story entirely. And yet, the platform kept growing. Every success, every piece of praise misdirected to the wrong person only made me more certain of one thing. This couldn't last. The launch party was held at a rooftop venue downtown, all glass railings and exposed industrial beams. String lights flickered over white-clothed tables. The evening air carried the scent of catered hors d'oeuvres and expensive cologne. I arrived early wearing a navy jumpsuit. Simple, neat, functional. Celeste shimmered in silver sequins, her hair curled in soft waves that caught the light every time she turned her head. This was supposed to be a celebration of Thread's official release as a standalone product, a move I had architected, optimized, and coded into reality over 18 months of relentless work. The firm was no longer just a marketing agency. It was a legitimate tech player now, powered by the platform I'd built from scratch. As the sky darkened, laughter rose over smooth jazz and the clink of champagne flutes. My mother worked the room with practiced charm. Grant hovered by the bar, holding court with clients. Celeste flitted between conversations like a practiced campaigner. I stood near the projection screen, watching Thread's dashboard cycle through live metrics, real-time wins, system performance, client sentiment scores. It was working. All of it. A few minutes before dessert, someone dimmed the lights. Grant stepped forward with a microphone, his whiskey glass raised. "Tonight's more than a celebration," he began, his voice warm and rehearsed. "It's a rebirth. We were on the brink, many of you know that, but something changed. Someone had vision, guts, style." He turned to Celeste, who froze mid-smile. "It gives me great pride to announce that the architect of our future, our new Chief Innovation Officer, is Celeste Elage." The applause was thunderous. Celeste blinked, then stepped forward, her hand pressed dramatically to her chest. "Thank you," she said, her voice cracking just enough to sound humble. "This is just the beginning." I stood perfectly still. My heart wasn't pounding. It was quiet, cold, certain. The rest of the evening blurred. Guests came to congratulate her. Some shook my hand too, mistaking me for a junior developer or a project manager. I smiled, nodded, even took photos. But the moment that burned came later when my parents found me at the bar. Grant handed me a gift bag, grinning. "A little something for the woman behind the curtain." Inside was a ceramic mug, white, with glossy black letters. "Best Assistant." I nodded slowly, wrapped my fingers around the handle. "Thanks," I said. I carried that mug back to my apartment that night, set it next to my monitor, and while the city slept off its champagne and self-congratulation, I opened NovaLogic's admin dashboard and began to dismantle everything they thought they owned. The apartment was silent when I returned. I slipped out of my heels and powered on my workstation. The glow of the monitors felt steadier than anything else that night. Thread was still humming in the background, its logs clean, uptime flawless. It didn't care who got credit. It just ran. I opened the NovaLogic Systems console and authenticated with a biometric key I'd built in myself, a quiet safeguard from years ago. One by one, I reviewed the access permissions. Elage Strategies had full operational access through a renewable licensing agreement, but that license was tied explicitly to one condition: my continued role as Director of Technical Operations. That clause had been buried in the legal packet I'd filed when I first returned to Portland. Grant had signed it without reading. I initiated the termination protocol. License revocation pending leadership change. Access would remain live until 7 a.m. Then I opened the client contracts. Starbucks, REI, 7 other major accounts. Each one contained a clause I'd quietly negotiated months ago, giving them the right to walk if I was no longer affiliated with the company. I drafted the message carefully, not bitter, not angry, just facts. As of this evening, I am no longer affiliated with Elage Strategies. Under the terms of our agreement, you are now free to renegotiate or terminate service with no penalty. I sent each one individually, no mass email, just clean, professional, deliberate. At 1:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Celeste, you okay?" I stared at the message for a long time. She had no idea what she was asking, no idea what I'd done, no idea what was coming. I powered off my phone. Back on the screen, a new alert popped up from Nova's admin system, confirming revocation of back-end privileges. Their dashboards would go dark by sunrise. I leaned back, fingers still tingling. Not from nerves, but from clarity. They'd built a stage with my work, stood on it, and called it their own. By morning, they'd be standing in the dark. By the time I walked into the office at 8:30 a.m., the damage had already begun to show. The front desk assistant was on the phone, voice strained, eyes flicking frantically between screens. A junior developer paced by the elevator, murmuring, "I can't access anything." In the hallway, someone asked where the analytics dashboard had gone. No one had answers. I passed them all, calm, collected, holding a folder under one arm and my resignation letter on a flash drive. My heels clicked steadily on the tile floor. Grant and Celeste were already in the executive conference room. The door was open. Celeste stood beside the whiteboard, phone in hand, eyes wide. Grant was at the head of the table, red-faced, flipping through papers. When they saw me, Celeste's shoulders sagged. "Rowan, thank God. Something's wrong with Thread. Can you—" "I know," I said, placing the folder on the table. "It's intentional." Grant stood. "What are you talking about?" "I've terminated your license," I said evenly. "Thread is no longer authorized for Elage strategies." "You can't do that," he said, laughing in disbelief. "That's our software." I met his eyes. "No, it's not. Nova Logic Systems owns Thread, always has. You signed a licensing agreement when I came back. You also signed a clause that tied that license to my leadership role." Celeste looked stunned. "You're leaving." I nodded and slid the flash drive across the table. "Here's my formal resignation, effective immediately." "You don't have to do this," she said quickly. "We can fix this." "I'm not here for apologies," I said. "I'm here to reclaim what I built." Grant's face twisted. "You blindsided us." "No," I said. "You just never bothered to look." I turned and walked out. Behind me, chairs scraped back and papers fluttered. The walls trembled with something real finally shifting. The office in Portland's Pioneer District smelled like fresh paint and possibility. It wasn't much, just 3 rooms above an independent bookstore, but it was ours. The desks were mismatched. The Wi-Fi was finicky. The coffee machine wheezed before it worked. But when I opened my laptop and watched the Nova Logic server stabilize under our own domain, it felt more solid than anything I'd built before. 12 clients followed within the first 24 hours. Starbucks, REI, 2 mid-sized agencies from Austin and Chicago. They didn't ask questions. They knew where the innovation came from. My team was small, just 5 of us. People who'd stayed up with me through long nights debugging. People who never minded that I didn't talk much in meetings, only that I delivered. No one asked who the face of the company was. They already knew. By noon, we'd sent out our first updated proposals. By 3 p.m., we had 2 signed contracts in hand. I watched the numbers roll in, not with adrenaline, but with clarity. This was mine. Not because I'd taken it, but because I'd earned every line of code, every client, every cautious yes. At 6:42 p.m., Celeste called. I let it ring. At 7:09, she texted, "Please talk to me." I didn't answer. 10 minutes later, an email from Grant landed. No subject line, just one sentence. "We can fix this." There was nothing left to fix. They'd broken something fragile when they mistook silence for absence. I hadn't walked away in anger. I'd walked away because I finally understood I didn't need to wait for them to see me. The message came a few days later, short, unpolished. "Can we talk?" "Just once, please." I agreed to meet at a cafe near the waterfront, the kind of place with cracked tile floors and chipped mugs. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting by the window. No makeup, no polished hair. Just a plain sweater and dark circles under her eyes. She stood when she saw me, but I didn't offer a hug. We sat. "I didn't know," she said quietly, fingers wrapped around her cup. "I didn't realize what was happening with the contracts, the software, any of it." I stirred my tea and said nothing. "I thought you'd always be there," she added. "I thought you didn't mind." I raised my eyes to hers. "When they handed you the title, when they said you built something you didn't understand, did you ever question it?" Her face crumpled. She looked down. "No, I didn't think. I just took it." "That's the difference between us," I said. "You never had to think about what you were given. I never stopped thinking about what could be taken." She reached across the table, but I didn't move. "Please, Rowan, we're falling apart. Dad's a mess. Investors are pulling out. We can't fix this without you." Her voice shook, like it was the first time she'd said those words out loud. I stood slowly, tucking my chair back. "You wanted the title, Celeste. Keep it. Figure out what it actually means." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't stay to watch them fall. Outside, the city buzzed with the quiet rhythm of late afternoon. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and walked toward the light rail without looking back. There was nothing left to prove, just the sound of my own footsteps, steady, sure, moving forward. Within 3 weeks, Elijah Strategies unraveled. The firm issued a quiet statement about organizational restructuring, but the silence from major clients said everything. Grant was removed by the board. Celeste resigned days later. The media tried to spin it, but the tech blogs gave it teeth. The AI coup, when the ghost in the machine had a name, one headline read. I didn't comment. Nova Logic, meanwhile, signed 2 more major contracts, one with a healthcare startup, another with a sustainable retail brand. The work was clean, collaborative, transparent. My team grew, not just in size, but in spirit. No drama, no spotlight chasing, only forward motion. A few weeks later, I was invited to speak at Portland State University's Tech Ethics Seminar. I almost declined, but something in me paused. Maybe it was time to say something, not for attention, but for the next person sitting in silence. I didn't prepare a script. I brought the mug instead. Best assistant, it said in glossy letters chipped at the rim. I set it on the podium and let it sit there through the entire talk. I spoke about innovation, ownership, what it means to build when no one's watching. The students listened closely. A few nodded. One in the back raised her phone to snap a photo of the mug. I didn't stop her. Afterward, I walked out with a quiet sense of weight having shifted. Not lifted exactly, just placed somewhere it belonged. The mug rode home in my bag beside a new signed contract. Another door opening. Quietly. Exactly the way I liked it. The envelope arrived without a return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately, slanted too tight, like he was always trying to fit too much into a single line. I held it for a moment, then slid it unopened into the back sleeve of my scrapbook. The page already held a photo of the Nova Logic team at our first product milestone, grinning in hoodies, half caffeinated but proud. Next to it, the signed contract that had taken our valuation past $600 million. And beside that, the mug, Best Assistant, still chipped at the rim. I closed the book and set it on the shelf. Outside, the Portland skyline shimmered under low clouds. My new apartment overlooked the Willamette River. Clean lines, quiet corners, no noise, no titles, no stage. I made a cup of coffee and carried it to the window. The city hummed below. Headlights glowing. Someone walking a dog. A neighbor 2 floors down waved when she saw me. I waved back. For years, I'd waited for someone to tell me I mattered. That I was more than the code, more than the silence. Now, no one needed to say it. I'd built something no one could take, not to prove them wrong, but to finally believe I was enough.